Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending March the 10th, where we had a wild week, just all over the board, starting out last Monday with high winds, 50-60 mile an hour winds, the deadly fire, killing good people, killing thousands of cattle, burning up millions of acres of pasture land. Just really a horrible start there, and then we come into the fat cattle trade, which ended up being just a whole lot better than anybody dreamed it could be, gaining ground right in the face of adversity after 2 weeks of giant negotiated volumes and a $10, at least $10, maybe $10 plus basis right there for the feedlots to just swipe off the table, and they still dug in and stood their ground and demanded more money for cattle and ended up gaining ground in the market. Your slaughter was good, everything was good, our demand is good, consumer demand for beef is good, and all your fundamentals are good, and your board actually even started to respond a little bit late in the week, which is unusual for it to pay any attention to the real world, but starting to a little bit, but still just dragging its feet behind. And your cash market, both on feeders and fats, is just having to drag this ball and chain called the CME cattle futures along, and it's a burden to it. But let's look at the board for last week. Live cattle futures on the April contract. Monday was down 42. Tuesday down 20. Wednesday started to turn around when we saw that fat cattle trade working, which didn't really happen until later on in the day for the most part, but we saw what was going to happen. So that was up 62 cents on Wednesday, up 52 on Thursday, and up $1.10 on Friday, and closing the week out on a strong note. So that's important. Ending the week with your April contract, and that's your spot market at 117.60, and we have a top on a cash basis at 127. So still dragging way behind, but still that 117.60 was up $1.63 for the week, but not much to look forward to with the June closing the week at 107.50. So we have a $10 between cash and what the spot market is, and then another $10 dropped getting into June fats, which is the next traded month. But feeder cattle contracts for April, Monday was down 27, Tuesday down 32, Wednesday was up 42, so it came up in the last half of the week just like the fat contracts. Thursday was up $1.85, and Friday up $2.05, ending the week with feeder cattle contracts on the April at 126.67. That's based on an 800-pound steer. That's up 372 for the week, and very good showing there. May is sitting around 125.77, which we'll go to pretty soon. But your fat cattle trade through Thursday already sold over 103,000 head negotiated. That's after that 140,000 head week and that 125,000 head week right there in a row, but probably not going to be enough on Friday to push this much more, but 103,000 still a good showing, especially after those two big negotiated weeks. But you had cash sales ranging on a live basis from 123 all the way to 127, which would be mostly steady to $2 higher. That 123 and 24 was early in the week, whenever the packers just assumed that they were going to buy cattle cheaper. For the most part, your market was at 125 in the southern plains, but your northern plains, due to the extremely tight supplies of market-ready cattle we have in the northern plains, they were getting 126 and 127. So far, your weighted average is around 125 and a quarter, which is going to be about 50 cents higher for the week. Dress sales were a little bit better too there, and 201 and a half is about your weighted average there on your dress sales. But very good market, and just very impressive the way that it happened, especially with that basis there that's just available for those guys to put in their pocket. They're still going to get the basis with the higher market. It's just amazing that they stood their ground and kind of brushed off those lower bids earlier in the week when they were afraid that basis might close up. But really good showing from your feedlot managers, your cash cattle sellers, just everybody that's doing that. And I think we're just starting to feel more people get into the negotiated market, and that is a great thing to see. But slaughter for the week, last week, 587,000 head, which is a good showing, up 6,000 from the same week a year, same from last week, and up 44,000 for the same week a year ago. Box beef cutout values made another big advance, and they're really starting to get up there. Choice carcasses 214.12 on the average. That's the average trade for last week, and that was up 826 compared to the same week the previous week. And the select carcasses on the average trade 207.26, which was up 545 for the week. Your choice select spreading out there a little bit at 686. But just everything's really good going in there. We talked about your fires, and I don't want to beat this to death, but there was lives lost, and it's a major thing still this week on your for your cattle producers. But I was traveling on Saturday in the eastern Texas Panhandle there on I-40, and just saw load after load after load of hay coming in from the east and Oklahoma, Missouri, even in the southeast places, people from Nebraska sending in hay, all from all over. And not to say it wasn't coming in from the west too, but just load after load was rolling in the eastern Panhandle there. And I tell you what, just puts a lump in your throat watching that, people honking and cheering and waving, and just the way that people in the agriculture way of life come together when they have adversity, it is absolutely second to none. Nobody sits and waits for the government to come bail them out, although the government's trying to help too. They've got money available. They're starting to let this CRP loose so guys can cut that. It doesn't make the best hay in the world, but it's something for them to eat. You know, they've loosened some of the travel restrictions on wide loads so they can get some of these big loads of round bales down the highway. And everybody's just doing what they can because it was such a horrible catastrophe. Some of those counties in Kansas there, you know, just the majority of the county was burnt. And people losing big herds of cattle, and it's just a horrible thing. Coming up here this Monday and through this week, a lot of your bigger sales through the Plains states there are going to be having benefit sales where somebody will donate a calf and they'll resell it and raise money and send it to the effort. And you know, really, I hate to push anybody away with hay because they're bound to need it down the road a little bit, but they've got mountains of hay at some of these distribution points now, and what they're really asking for is money or fencing supplies. And I always wanted to buy those fencing supplies installed, which they would love to do too, and that's a big job ahead of these guys, but they need posts, they need wire, they need things like that to rebuild these fences. And besides the loss of life, as far as just the ag production there, the fences are probably the worst thing. A lot of these guys had their cattle insured. I would say for the most part they're insured, but losing the bloodlines, losing the cattle that they've been working hard producing, it's just a tough thing. They can buy more and get back in business, but it's just like losing members of your family when you lose your cattle, and people that are with PETA or HSUS or something that think that the cattle people don't love their cattle. They have no idea what they're talking about, because they absolutely do. But look at your feeder cattle markets for last week. The trend on the feeders really ended the week or closed the week mostly steady to $1 higher. Started out higher in their big volume markets early in the week, and then kind of faded off a little bit when we started to see some pressure in some Tuesday, Wednesday markets, but then closed the week higher again due to all the impressive action in the fat cattle trade, and the board starting to trade higher there too. Light calves, of course, it's March, it's spring of the year. Your light calves are going to be higher. Of course they are, because we got grass coming. Steady to $5 higher on light calves. Where they were tested, not a good test really anywhere except for the southeast, and those cattle are really starting to roll in on order to get ready for this grass that's coming. One thing that was lower was big calves. heavier calves that really need to go right into the feedlot. If they had the condition, we could put them out, turn them out on some graze out wheat, or turn them out on some early grass. But a lot of the big calves now are new croppers, and they've never wanted for anything in their whole short lives there, and so they're weighing quite a bit. They're pretty fleshy, and they're just not the kind of cattle you really want to turn out on grass or just a roughage diet, and that's all. But a lot of cattle coming off wheat this past week in the southern plains. You saw big movements in places like Pratt and places like El Reno, Oklahoma, and places, and you know how dry it is. We had those big fires, but amazingly this winter wheat has been pretty good grazing and still looks pretty good. And what little moisture there was timely, and for as dry as it is, this wheat's been awful good, and the cattle have been doing very well off of it. A lot of them are fairly fleshy. But you look at late week market there, individual quote out of Lexington, Nebraska on Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon at 140 head of steers, weighed 801 at 135. That's an awful good price there. But check out DV Auction. We still got a lot of these bull sales going on, these spring bull sales. If you haven't reloaded on your breeding stock or bought some new bulls, it's pretty cheap insurance to make sure that you get all your cows bred. But check those out. So here back at home and here at Canyon, Texas, and working for DV Auction. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.